This is not only for people who want to learn C programming, it's also for people who don't know nothing about IT and they never program anything at all. Because sometimes we want to learn C, but we know two, three other language. It's different approach. But now I'm starting from the really beginning for people who never program anything. Let's imagine they have a PC at home, Windows in it. They heard about programming. They go to on a social network. I want to learn programming. What do you recommend me to begin with? But in fact, I don't know about nothing about IT. Some people on social networks say learn C programming as your first language. So that video is for you. So let's start. And first of all, you have to understand programming language. There is some families of programming language of some kind of a kind of programming language. We call that interpreter language or interpreted language. You need an interpreter to put your code in and run the code. And there is a compiler or a compiler. You edit your code. When you finish your code, you need to compile the code, build it with a linker, compiler and linker, to generate a binary file. And that binary file can be executed by himself. You don't need an interpreter to run it. C language, it's the compiler family. Let me say it like that. So for that reason, we need first of all to install a compiler, and we gonna install an EDI, IDE. Sorry, because I'm a French guy. Sometimes I use French letters, but in English, IDE. It's integrated document interface that we're gonna use to code in C language. Let's install first the compiler called GCC, made by TDM, the TDM GCC. Go to GM or JMEU bank.github.io slash TDM dash GCC. I repeat it, JMEUBANK dot github dot io slash tdm dash gcc slash download, and then choose C compiler 9.2. This is a 6432-bit compiler. We will download this one, and right away by clicking on it, the download start, and it's almost done right now. Only 3 seconds, and we're done. Now I'm gonna install this compiler. Installing the compiler. I'm gonna create, manage an existing installation or remove installation. I will create a new installation. I choose default the most of the time. I don't want to bother with things I don't know. I'm going to use the default because you don't know that much about compiler ID. It's your first program. In fact, the default things might be interesting at your level. I'm going to choose a directory where I need to install my compiler. I will say C backslash um, my GCC compiler. I'm going to call it like that. This is my GCC compiler. I'm going to use the default again. Install. Install is running and it's pretty fast. Don't worry, we're almost done. And that's it. Complete successfully. Don't need to read the README file. And the compiler has been installed. Now we're fine. We have a compiler, a C compiler, important. We're going to install codeblock. Codeblock is a good IDE with all the features needed. And it's a open source cross platform. I'm going to download it for Windows. Most of the time I program on a Linux machine, but today to show you as a beginner, I'm going to use Windows to teach that. So I download binary. Oh, sorry, I click on this one by mistake. I will install codeblock 20 from SourceForge. Download will start in 3 seconds. And download is running actually, and it's almost done. Now it's done. Antivirus is running on it. Everything is fine. Open it. Codeblock open. Next, 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 next. Target directory already exists. And maybe it's because I'm running codeblock actually. I'm going to close my codeblock because we start over. Retry. It's running. And I need to run codeblock right now. Yes. Now I have a fresh installation of a C compiler and codeblock. Now what I need to do, I need to tell codeblock where is my compiler. Because when I will try to compile something with codeblock, I'm going to do everything in codeblock. I will put my code and I will use codeblock to build the binary, compile and link. For that I go to settings, compiler. In compiler I made sure I have GNU GCC compiler here. It was already there, but anyway. And then there is tabs. Choose tool chain executable. And here you will put the folder where you install my GCC compiler. You remember we install our GCC compiler in that folder? We're gonna say yes, use this compiler. This is the one I need to use. And you're now ready to start your first C program. You install a compiler and an IDE interface. You're ready to code. New, empty file. I'm going to start really basic, and I will include, this is my first line, stdio.h, and there is no color actually because the program doesn't know yet in what language I'm typing in. I will save this, save as, and I will call that my first C program.c. And now because I put the .c and I save it with the .c, the interface know what language I'm typing in. So I'm gonna have some color to help me to find out my functions, my variable, my things like that. So when we start programming in C, we include standard input output. This is what stdio stands for. And H, it means that it's a header file. Standard input output, and then I'm going to create the only function important for a C program. Every time you run a C program, the main function is the one that is called right away. From that, you can call anything after, but main is mandatory. And main return an integer. Every program return when a program finish, you have to return an exit code to tell the operating system how was the execution of your program. So there is a standard in the industry. Every time you run a program and everything goes fine, you return 0 to tell the operating system everything goes fine. 0 mean everything is fine, no, don't worry. And then the main function is going to return an integer at the end. The syntax of a C program is working with round bracket like that. And at the end, I'm going to return 0. This is the main core of a program. And I can printf hello world \n mean \n mean return. When you print something on the screen, \n is going to put the cursor on the next line in the first column. If you don't put that, you're going to print hello world, and the cursor will stay there. The next print will be right after. \n is just break the line. In HTML, you should say BR, break row, just to bring back the cursor to the beginning of the next line. And in C programming, we hand our instruction with a semicolon, like that. Have a try with that. I'm going to build this. The build up is here. Build finish, no warning, no error. And I will try to run that. By running that, says hello world and return code 0. And that's all. This is our first program. Let's see some variable now. A variable in programming, it's a way to reserve a memory location to put some value in memory. And the memory size is defined by the type of variable we're using, and we're going to play with this variable. Let's imagine I want to put in memory a char, a character, only one character. We're not talking about a string, just talking about one character. A variable, the way it works, we give a name to our variable, and the name of that variable will be a letter, just a letter. In fact, what this is going to do, when I will compile that will reserve in memory a space. The amount of byte will be 1 byte, and the name of that location, because when I will want to access that memory location, I will use the word letter to access that memory location. Every time I'm going to use letter, that will refer to that memory space. Integer, it's a number, like age. Imagine I want to know the age of someone. I ask, how old are you? And the person is telling me 25. I have to remember in the memory, the location of that memory, the name will be age, and I'm going to put the value 25 at that location. But if a number, it's a float. A float, it's not an integer, it's a number dot some decimal. We call that a float. And a float could be an amount of money. An amount of money could be $10.25. $10.25. It's not an integer, it's a float. Let's start with this three variable now. So remember, in memory, I reserve three space in memory. One space, I'm going to put a letter. In the other space, I will put an integer there. In the other memory location, I'm going to put an amount of money. The name of my first memory location, I call that letter. I give a name to the second one. I call that space in memory age. And the third one, I name it amount of money. That will be easy for me as a programmer to refer and remember what is supposed to be in that memory location. If I call it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, after 1,000 lines of code, I won't remember what is in the G location. I don't remember. But if I put significant name like that, it's easy for me to remember when the variable called age in that memory location, I expect to have the age of the person. It doesn't make sense having something else because I name it age. I'm going to use that for that reason. I will say here age equal 25. And I can print, I can say letter equal y. And for your information, I suggest you to read about ASCII code. ASCII, spell ASCII, 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 because every character refers to a code, and the code used by computer is the ASCII code, in PC computing for sure. ASCII code means that every letter have its own code. Let me show that to you here. Just to give you an example, an ASCII table. In an ASCII table, the letter A is located at value 90. The code of the letter A, lowercase, it's 97. The code of the letter S, it's 100, and so on. There is the plus, round bracket, dollar sign, space, even a space have a code. Code 32, it's a space. And there is control character here. Special character, not non-printable character. It doesn't mean that if it's in the ASCII table, it's a printable. Maybe you want to print that on your screen. It doesn't make sense. It's not a printable character. Printable characters start here in the space and end at 126 here. In fact, this is the printable section. This is the extended ASCII. This is also printable character, but sometimes the extend ASCII in another country, it could be different because they use different language or different symbol. But most of the time, the first 127 character never change for anybody. So let's imagine I put Y. Well, no, I'm going to take another example. I will use the letter A, the ASCII code 65. What you can do here, even if it's a character, you can say letter equal the ASCII code of the character. You can put A, or you can put 65. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. A is the ASCII code of A is 65, and 65 is the letter A. And then the amount of money equal $10 25. Let me print that. Print F. F stands for format. We can print something on the screen and we can put a format of what we're printing. I can print my age is, and the format will be %d. %d mean an integer. My age is an integer. And when you have in your format something, you need an argument that's gonna replace this, and the argument will be age. You remember age is the name of a memory location where I put the number 25 previously. I can also do a print F. I like the letter %C. And then I'm going to put letter. And we're going to see how the compiler and the printout will look like. %C means I like a letter, and then the first argument in my argument, it's a character. %D it's an integer, but %C it's a letter. And then printf, I have that money. I put a $sign. %0.2f. The way the formatting works, the first 0 means I do not reserve any amount of spaces to display that. But after the dot, put only 2 decimal. If the number is 1000.12345, we're going to show only 2 decimal instead of 5. But in another program where we work for a scientist and we need 5-digit precision, we're going to put 0.5 because for that purposes we need 5-digit precision. But for money, most of the time, we need only 2 digit. And the F stands for a float. Now we need to put a float argument here, and the float argument will be amount of money. Let's run. So now the program is a little bit bigger than the first one, and we can run and build at once and see how it works. Hello world, my age is 25. I like the letter A. And you know there is no 65 here now, it's the letter A. I have that money, 1025. And return code is still 0. Let's now put in place a function, because sometimes when you build big program, you have to do some code hundreds of times. But instead of hundred of times the same code. You do a function and you call your function when you need it. Let's imagine you know that someone was 15 years old, but 20 years ago. How old that person have today, you don't know. The only thing you know, he or she have 15 years old, but it's 20 years ago of that. You want to do a function to resolve that mystery, and we call that a mystery. We're gonna say age equal, and I give a name of my function. I can give it the name I want. I can name it int because int it's a reserved word for the C language. But I can say function adding. I name it like that, function adding. Or discover mystery. Discover mist. It's gonna discover a mystery. Okay, this is the name of my function. I'm gonna give him two integer. I'm gonna give him 15 because I know the person have 15 years old, a long time ago, and how many years that person was at that age. It's 20 years ago. I don't know how old he is right now or how old she is right now. I only know that she's 15 years old 20 years ago. The way, okay, something else I want to tell you. I'm just put aside the function. I want to explain you something else now. When I put my variables outside the function, outside any function, it's a global variable. Those variables can be used by any of my function. But if I put my variable inside a function, only that function knows about that variable. And if I create other function, they won't be able to use this function. Prefer always use local variable. Use global variable only when there is no other choice. But for now, we're gonna create our function, discover mystery. That function should return an integer here. So we're gonna call it int. And now we are just doing a prototype of our function. Because in C, we're gonna put our function here right after. But because when we will compile the program, the compiler will go like this. And when the compiler saw a call to a function and never saw the function, he will say, I'm sorry, I don't know that function. And you're gonna have an error. But the function is right after. The prototype is to avoid having error and prepare the compiler. When you're gonna see that, he haven't seen the function yet, but he knows the prototype and he knows that he's going to see the function later. The prototype is, I'm going to put two integer. That function will require two integer as argument and will return an integer. I don't need to put variable at this moment, variable name like int age. I don't need that because it's a prototype. I just fill it up with the types, not the variable name. And I put a semicolon because don't expect to have a block of code right after. It's just a prototype. And then I do my real function, int, previous previous age, and another hint, how long ago. So my function, I'm gonna give him two parameters: the previous age of the person and how long ago that person have that age. And the discover mystery function should resolve the mystery by doing return previous age plus how long ago. Because I know, as a programmer, to resolve how old today someone is having is what the person have in the past and how many years from that date. If I have 20 years old last year, I should have 21 this year. The same thing here. So I'm going to return the resolution of that to my age, and here I'm going to print I have 15 years old I have 15 years old 20 years ago. Now I'm having %d because I'm gonna print an integer because my function returned an integer, and then age. So I hope it's not a big mystery for you. I hope that. And can you guess how old this person is having? 15 plus 20. We're going to see that here. By building and running this program, I have an error. That's good. We have to test error too. Line 23, I have an error. A semicolon is expected before return. You can see here, line 23, the compiler expects a semicolon before the return. I forget to put my semicolon. That's all. That's all that means. Let me try to build and run that again. Now it's working. Age 25. I like the letter A. I have $10.25. I have 15 years old 20 years ago. Now I'm having 35 and I return 0. So this is how functions work. Let me show you the return code and a conditional statement. We call that a conditional statement. If age is lower than 18, we should print that person, that drink required 18 years old. Please don't sell alcohol to young person. Example. This is an example where I'm working on a cash register and someone came to the cashier. We scan a bottle of beer, and then the cashier said, "How old are you?" And the person said, "I'm 14 years old." My cashier entered 14, and the program said, "Okay, because it's lower than 18, I'm gonna send a pop-up to my cash register, and I will send a return code of 4." This is a number I choose. I can put 1. Avoid 0 because 0 means everything goes fine. So for that reason, I should have a reasonable return code. Let's imagine 1. I will end the program right away, return the program. If not, print good, that customer is allowed to buy this item. Because my customer is having 18 or more, is allowed to buy a bottle of beer. But the previous customer, because the age was lower than 18, was not allowed to sell its own alcohol. And then now I can return 0 because everything is fine. And just right here, I'm going to put age equal 4 years old. Well, let's say 14. Let's try this program now. Blah, 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 blah. No, I forget to build it, I think. Okay. That drink require 18 years old. Please don't sell alcohol to young person. And the return code now is 1. It's no longer 0. Because now we exit with an error message. If we do this program running an automation software, maybe we're going to build this automation to say run the program, and if the program exits with error code number 1, advise the manager, send an email to the manager or SMS to the manager to tell him, hey manager, take care, you have someone pretty young in the grocery right now trying to buy some alcohol, so the manager can check with the cash register person, uh, do you sell alcohol, because you're not allowed to do that and things like that. So that's all for me. Remember to put some comment in your code. It's important because sometimes when you do complex, here my code is not complex. There is nothing complex. Maybe you find that a little bit complex because it's your first one, but believe me, it's pretty straightforward. But when you gonna have thousands of lines, sometimes you're gonna have a function really tricky, and you won't remember why you did it that way or something like that. Put some comment. This is a comment for myself, or for someone else, because sometimes when you if you work in IT, you're gonna do a program, and maybe you're gonna be promoted to another department, and a new guy is going to debug that program in 2 years, and maybe that guy is going to be happy to see some comment telling that function is doing this and this and this. That way the programmer will say, no, I'm looking for a function who validate, so is going through your commentary or your documentation, and you can easier for him to debug a program, or for yourself sometime when you are a couple of months without reading your program and you don't remember what you did that did it for. There is two way of putting comment: a slash slash. Slash slash, it's only for one line of comment. Here, because I do 2 line of comment, I put it twice. One for this line, one for this line. But you can also in C do slash star and do a lot of comment like that. And when you're done, star slash. Begin of the comment, all your comment, and it could be on the same line, it doesn't matter. It could be like that, it doesn't matter. What's important, slash star and ended by star slash, that's all. Or slash slash, and you can also put comment on the same line. You can put something like that, age of that person, letter I prefer, I like some good alignment. My wallet today. So you can put comment like that at the end of the line. So the programmer will say, the other programmer who's take over on your program will say, okay, it do this variable for that reason, this one, and then is going through, it's okay, is do that comment for that reason and that, and so on and so on. So it's useful. And when you run this, the comment doesn't shows up. The comment never appear to the user. The comment, it's only for the programmer in the source code. That's all. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you will be able now to start programming. You install a compiler, GCC, you install codeblock, you go in settings, compiler here, and toolchain executable to make a relationship between codeblock and your compiler, and then you start simple code like that. Practice. That video should learn you the very first step to begin, but the better way to learn is to practice by yourself, having some error, finding the error, try to understand, but just be with what I show you here. You should learn by yourself by practicing a little bit, and then you can see my other video where I put more complex code for more experimented user. So from beginning, intermediate, and I have for everybody. Enjoy, have a great day, see you soon.